Welcome, everyone, to the After Action Report, a podcast from the Eden Project. What are we on, episode 7 already?
It's crazy, isn't it?
I can't believe time is flying when you're having so much fun. Hey, I'm Michael Stuart, one of your hosts. My other host is my friend and the founder and executive director of the Eden Project, Bryn Briggs.
I wish everyone could see that because that face is, says everything. Good morning.
One day they will on video when we come out with our video right now. We do thank you for tuning in. We're recording again this episode coming from Rome at Trillith, Georgia, home of the new Hollywood, as some people are calling it.
Did you see the groundbreaking yesterday?
No.
So not only is it the new home of Hollywood, one of the biggest studios in Georgia and I think in the country, groundbreaking yesterday for the soccer stadium.
Oh, wow.
That was yesterday.
Man, so much is going on out here. They film, they film all the Marvel movies out here. It's a great place to live. A lot of people have moved out here, and then there's other people who say, I can't afford it. And then they live outside the area. And but we're grateful to be here at Rome recording from their podcast studio. And we're glad that you are tuning in this week. We are going to talk to a special guest in just a couple of minutes, but we do want to kind of, even though this podcast lives on forever, yesterday was the giant event that everybody talked about, and for us kind of went womp womp womp. I think the conspiracy theories were a little more entertaining than the eclipse itself.
I love that. A lot of the conspiracies that I listened to or watched I was so disappointed with the actual event itself.
Oh, yeah.
It happened. It got a little dark yesterday, but nothing like the talking head or the news person I was watching. I thought she was watching like the Macy's Day Parade or something. It just, whatever she was seeing was not what I was seeing.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it comes. Yeah. No, it's, I think they built it up to be a lot more than what it is. And then, of course, you follow all the theories, well, it crossed over here, crossed this one, it made the cross. Jesus is coming back. I had a friend tell me yesterday, you shouldn't be outside when the eclipse is going on because bring your animals inside because the shadow is unhealthy for you. And I don't know. I do know this. That someone,
I didn't understand the health part.
I don't understand that either. But someone sent me this, that Bonnie Tyler, who did the song Total Eclipse of the Heart, is projected to earn $1.47 million off the Spotify streams during the solar eclipse.
Holy cow. So
you imagine making a song and then just, like every 4 or 5 years, here comes my $1 million. Thank you so much.
We need to come up with something.
I was inspired many, many years ago when Paul McCartney came up in the 70s with Wonderful Christmas Time, right? It's played maybe 30 days out of the year.
Yeah.
Every year, Paul, just from the royalties of playing that song once a year, makes about $400,000 a year.
Just that song.
One song.
Now,
forget all the other Beatles and solo tunes and Wings and all of that, but that's it. We need to come up with something that people will pull out every couple of years and make us where we don't have to work anymore.
That's our mission. We have a new mission now.
It would be my new mission, but I love working. I love my job. If you've never visited the Eden Project's website to see exactly what that's all about, visit eden-project.com, eden-project.com. Or if you want to talk to someone, maybe you've got some questions, you want to text, make a phone call, want a prank call.
We get them all the time.
Do you have the number handy? Do you know your own?
You do that to me all the time.
Well, I know, and it's like,
and I'll dig it out.
And all my notes, I don't have that right here. Now here's what we do. We meet. Oh, here we go. It's 678-632-5383. 678-632-5383. Brent and I, every time we do a podcast, which is every couple of weeks, every 2 weeks, we meet for breakfast at Thumbs Up Diner, and he eats the same thing every time, and I don't, and because he's predictable like that. And we talk about the show. And so we said, hey, here's what we're going to do. And then you mentioned a part we got to, and you wouldn't share with me what it is. Usually just to let you know that I'm not necessarily in on this whole episode as far as what's going to be happening. Ta-da.
Maybe. You've probably heard about it a little bit. Anyway, so is that where you want me to go now? Because I'm kind of excited to get there.
Okay, then let's do it.
All right. So let me go back to that phone number for a second. We've only had that number for 8 years. I can't be expected to memorize something that we've had for 8 years.
You remember back in the day when you knew everybody's phone number by heart? We didn't have cell phones. You had a Rolodex maybe, or your little carry-around pad. And you knew mom's number, you knew mom's work, you knew your best friend's phone number, you knew your phone number. Now, I don't know my kids, my wife's phone number. It's just Carrie in the phone, you know?
Yeah.
So
that's how I am too. So thank you for remembering that and digging it out of your memory for that phone number. But we are kind of lucky today. And here's where I was going to go with today. And whether you're surprised, you shouldn't be, because you kind of get this stuff all the time. Matter of fact, we talked about it a little bit this morning because it happens to you so often. I'm in the presence of greatness. Stop. I get to share a room with not one, but two celebrities, world-renowned people that travel the world and the country and are known everywhere. So where am I going with this?
I don't know. I barely get out of the county. What do you?
Obviously, I'm super excited about Mack Story and his history and the story that he's got to share and what he's done with his life. But last week I was here in the office, and someone came up to me and said, "Hey, I got to tell you this story." I'm like, "Okay." So usually those kind of stories have to do with they ran into a veteran and they gave him money that was on a street corner or something like that.
Right.
But this was a little bit different. He goes, "I was on a cruise."
Okay, so I heard this morning. All right,
Yeah.
I know you. Okay.
He said, "I was on a cruise and I was sitting there with my wife and we were just, chilling and hanging back." And I'm kind of not embellishing, but I'm probably toning it down from the way he told the story. But they were sitting there watching a movie, and all of a sudden somebody came up on the screen and he jumped up and said, "Oh my God, I know that guy." Well, do you know who that? Of course you know who that guy was.
Yeah.
So it wasn't Robert De Niro who was also in the scene. He was excited that it was you.
It was me. That's right.
And to puff your head up a little bit more, this is for everybody else listening. When Michael and I go out, I don't think we've gone to breakfast. I don't think we've gone anywhere that someone hasn't said, "I recognize that voice," or "You look familiar. Are you the guy in that movie?" We went to a bookstore not too long ago.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I'm going to go in there and pitch doing a
book signing, right?
a book signing, yeah. And I couldn't even get the "Hey, I'm Brent Briggs" out of my mouth. And the lady goes, "Oh, you're Michael Stuart." So not only am I sitting in the room with the infamous Michael Stuart, but we also have Mack Story with us.
Yes, we do. Real quick, being the voiceover stuff, I used to have friends who would reach out to me and go, "Oh, we were sitting in the movie theater, and those little commercials that they play on. I heard you talking about plumbing and pooping and stuff." I'm like, I mean, I would get things like all the time, but I have been in some TV shows and that will still come up on TV, like on the ID channel, and some movies like the movie, by the way, is about my father. If you want to go see it, that will help me get my 0.0003 cents in royalties once compounded annually or whatever.
But that other guy, that kind of, his name's not known as much as you.
Robert De Niro. Yeah. Robert De Niro, Sebastian Maniscalco, Kim Cattrall from Sex and the City.
Wow.
David Raish. We had an interesting thing with him, but yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And I didn't know where you're going, but then when it sounded like what we heard, because we ran into him this morning and he shared that story with me. So,
and most of the time I am joking and I'm sarcastic and I screw around probably more than I should. But
yes, you do.
This time I'm totally serious. It truly is an honor to be here with both you guys.
Well, I appreciate it. And speaking of you guys, that other guy that we're talking about is Mack Story. Now, Mack co-founded Top Story Leadership with his wife, Rhea, to provide motivational speaking, leadership development training, coaching, and consulting. They published more than 30 books on personal growth and leadership development and are often featured keynote speakers at conferences and seminars like all over the place, like all over the country. Maybe even goes out of the country, too. We don't know. We're about to find out.
He's international.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mack Story. Hi, Mack.
Hello, Michael and Brent. It's a privilege to be here on the After Action Report. And first thing I got to tell your listeners is I'm bilingual. A lot of people don't realize that, and when they do, they think I speak English and Spanish, but that's not it. It's English and country. Y'all with me?
Country Southern. How y'all doing?
I used to tell people I'm bilingual because I was in the Marine Corps and the Army, so I would tell folks I speak Marine and I speak Army.
Yeah.
But I like your bilingual better.
I like his. Yeah. So if you're tuning in from Minnesota or something like that, wow, that guy sounds funny. Yeah. We're like going, so do you. No.
Yeah. We'll be in Minnesota in October, so
really
they'll get to.
My wife is from Minnesota. Where are you going?
somewhere around Minneapolis. I'm not sure.
Okay.
We're speaking to a construction company.
My wife was in the Brainerd Lakes area, and every time she tells people where she's from, the accent comes out because you got to do the Minnesota.
Yeah.
Minnesota.
That's funny.
Well, Mack, we're glad you're here with us today. We're here not only because of your greatness and all that you've done, and we wanted to share, talk about that.
I'm just a regular guy.
You guys are friends. You've known each other for a while now, so I'm going to let you kind of take over. And
Yep. So I'll start a little bit, but I really want to hear, your version, Mack, and kind of talk about what you did too. So, what initially the connection or the draw with Mack and I was we were both in the Marine Corps, not together, but we were both in the Marine Corps. What I love about Mack and his story is how humble he is about his time in the service. So, if I can kind of recap a little bit up on what you said, then I'd love you to go into a little detail. Mack served 4 years. He served one tour in the Marines, and he said, "Yeah, I don't really talk about that much, because I didn't really do anything, but you did. You raised your hand. You wore the uniform. You took an oath to serve our country, and regardless of what your unit did during that time or what was going on during that time, you chose to be in the Marine Corps." And I think the listeners are eternally grateful for your time in service.
Well, I appreciate that. It was a Marine Corps Infantry Reserve unit. I actually signed up active duty in the delayed program, and then I did what some young people often do. I fell in love. So before I actually went active duty, I was able to change it to reserve. And
Nice.
I really think that's probably what I was meant to do, is be in the Marine Corps and not fall in love. Maybe, I don't know. But knowing what I'm doing now, maybe that was the way it was supposed to work out.
But it all worked out the way it was supposed to.
Yep.
So aside from the Marine Corps time, tell us a little bit about who you are and let the listener audience hear, the Mack Story.
Who I am today or in the past?
So start wherever you want to, and then if it kind of gets to a weird point, Michael will cut it off.
you were born a small child. And, no, that's a little too far back. No.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a little town in Alabama, and about 6,000 people, still 6,000 people in that town. But like I said, I joined the Marine Corps Reserve, went to boot camp Paris Island, infantry school at Camp Geiger, and that's how my blue-collar career started. Was my bunkmate was actually from a small town near me. I didn't know him, but my best friend in high school did know him. And his dad was a supervisor in a manufacturing plant. So when I got done with my infantry school and didn't go back to do my reserve duty, I joined his company. He hired me in.
I didn't know that.
His son was working there. Actually, we both went in temporary, and his dad hired me before he hired his son.
How about that?
But I had a lot of unlearning to do throughout. Really, it took a long time. I had a real short temper. Before I knew better, I used to say short temper runs in the family, but now I know irresponsibility runs in my family.
Yep. So talk a little bit about that part, because that's what I thought was real interesting. What you learned pre-Marine Corps and then Marine Corps, you kind of had to unlearn some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be in the Marine Corps infantry, they don't teach you to run around, hug, and love on everybody.
That's right.
I mean, it don't work out for you too well if that's the way you do it. But yeah, and I looked up. I had never really had a great relationship with my father, and really don't have one at all today. But I grew up really seeing my uncle as a father figure. And he had been in the Marine Corps, which is probably why I joined in the Marine Corps. And then he was also in Blackwater. He's pretty cool dude. He actually led a 70-person Blackwater delegation around in Iraq, who moved Ambassador Crocker around during that time. He was leading that team. So I can tell you, anybody who knows about those guys know who my uncle, what type of person he was, personality and that sort of stuff. But he had a big influence on me. What I know today was he influenced me. He didn't determine me, and I don't want to be a victim of circumstances. I heard Myron Golden a while back. He said, victimhood is made possible when we allow our contributing factors to become determining factors. Yep. And my uncle's influence, the Marine Corps, it contributed to who I was, but it didn't determine who I was. And when I got onto the personal growth and leadership development mission, 2008, I've been reading these type books every day since 2008, and I had never heard them. I was 20 years into my career by that time, and I had never no leader in 20 years ever told me I need to read a leadership book or personal growth book. I didn't even know they existed. I was that ignorant. So I had a lot of unlearning to do with my temper.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it cost me a lot of time. You know, the first 10 years of my career, I didn't really get promoted. A lot of it was because I was angry with everybody. But I did get promoted pay-wise, but I didn't really ever start climbing the corporate ladder because, I mean, I'm arguing with my coworkers, I'm arguing with my boss, I'm arguing with the support folks, all those people. And naturally I started getting better, you know, kind of by accident, like we all do sometimes.
Yep.
But I was able to keep my job because I was a high performer. That was the only reason I didn't get terminated. I should have been fired 100 times, but I actually got promoted 14 times in those 20 years.
So was that the turning point for you? I mean, what was the factor that said, hey, this ain't working for me, I got to do something different?
The accidental part was when my son was born. Yeah, that was in 91. And so that's I just had to get in gear, or I couldn't be fired. Before he was born, I could have been fired, but I never was fired in my career.
Yeah.
But once I had a son, I had to be a little more responsible. But I still had a bad temper for a long, long time.
Yeah.
It was ugly.
So the 8 years that I've known you, it's like, you know, like sitting next to Gandhi. I just don't see you with a temper. But maybe Gandhi had a temper too.
I just didn't know about it.
It's controlled now. About the worst I get is just quiet for a day or two sometimes. Yeah. That's about the worst I get. But that's better than what I used to do. But it's not the best thing to do still.
You know, I think being fired from things back in the old days was like a horrible, horrible thing. And now it seems like, I mean, even for me, and after 40 years doing radio and stuff, they say if you haven't been fired from radio at least 3 times, you haven't had a career in it.
Right, really?
I've had a long career in it. I've been fired a lot of places.
Wow.
But, you know, so I don't know if it's a bad stigma anymore, but it certainly does speak to your character that you didn't, and you've continued on and succeeded and even grew in these positions too.
And your blue collar leadership. So talk about maybe the transition from that to where you are now.
Yeah, so in the last from 2005 to 2008, I was leading lean manufacturing in my own company. And so I'd worked my way up, reporting to the plant manager by that time. But I resigned in 2008, started my own lean consulting business. And that's when I actually discovered this type of content that I write and talk about now. It was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which you and I both
know a little bit about that.
Yeah, we both know about that. And that was in 2008, and so for 4 more years up until 2012, I kept doing lean consulting. But the whole time I'd started reading every day, 2008, and then 2012 I decided I don't want to do that anymore. I want to help people live a better life at home and at work, you know, professionally and personally. And so that's when I started out. And I had told a friend of mine, he's a 6-time national champion of Auburn University equestrian team. He just retired, and Greg Williams, and I had told him about blue collar leadership. I said, that's what I really want to do. And he just loved the name. He said, it
is pretty cool.
You need to do that. And so that was around 2012 or so. And 2016, I wrote my 3rd book, which is titled Blue Collar Leadership, Leading from the Front Lines. It's really written for the frontline entry level worker. But I've got 7 books in that series now. So that's my passion, though, because in those 20 years of me working in manufacturing for multi-billion-dollar companies, no leader ever invested 1 penny or 1 minute introducing me to that content.
That is just crazy. You would think that they would invest in their people, but I'm seeing that smile in your face.
Most companies don't. Those are the ones, you know, I try to go around the country today and help, but the ones who need it most, not even interested.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what you find is the ones who need it the most are like, nah, we don't want to do that. We're fine doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yes. Character development's, you know, people call these soft skills, but there's nothing soft about transforming your character and developing your character.
So 2016 was you said your 3rd book.
My 3rd.
Your 3rd book.
The first one in the blue collar series, but my 3rd one overall.
That's about the time that we wrote a book together.
Yeah, that one's probably the 5th book, because I wrote 2 real close together, back to back. I write a book in a week. These books that you see me write, I write them in a week, so it doesn't take me long.
It's like, wait, he started his first one 6-7 years ago, and he's written 30 books since. It's like, how do you have all the time to do these conferences and have a life and write books?
It's just, I think it's a God thing. I think he's downloaded, because I can't remember nothing on purpose, but I can remember all this the good, what I call the good stuff. I
Right,
can remember
yeah,
without
right.
any effort. I don't study. I ain't ever studied any of this stuff. I read a lot,
Yeah.
and people think, oh, it's because you read a lot. But 99% of what I read, I don't remember. But I read so much that 1% is actually a lot of stuff.
Sticks
And then
in
I've applied it, so I got a lot of stories, which becomes the main thing is tell the story, make a point and tell a story, make a point, tell a story.
We need to get Mac to go watch our last episode, The Power of the Mind, because we
Yeah.
talked about, remembering things and being able to retain things, what are we talking about? See, that's me. It's like,
Squirrel.
That's definitely me.
Well, this book is kind of the book that we wrote together.
Yeah.
Was kind of significant, not just kind of significant, but really important to me. It became the basis of our initial peer-to-peer program. I'm going to tell part of the story, and then of course you'll tell like the truth or the rest of the story. How I see it and how you see it. There was a time in my life that things were, really dark and kind of bad, and I was putting together the Eden Project and going through some different stuff, and I had this way too grandiose vision of what I wanted the peer program to look like, and I was going super deep on a lot of the medical stuff. During that time, I was homeless, and Mac and his lovely wife Rhea didn't know me from Adam. But did we meet at a place that I was speaking or?
I think we met because of the Blue Collar Leadership book I was telling you I wrote in 2016. So somehow you saw it or commented or liked it on LinkedIn, and I reached out to you, and then we actually found out about your lean background and 7 habits, and we went and met at a coffee shop.
I remember that it was going to be a 1 hour meeting, and like 3.5 hours later, we're like, man, we got to go.
and soon there was a friendship.
Well, somehow in that time as well was that ugly, horrible divorce of mine, and the kids and I were homeless. So it was during the summertime. This is what I remember anyway. During the summertime, I had the kids for a week, and then they were with their mom for a week, and then back with me, and so forth. So this was when I first met Mac and Rhea, and out of nowhere, they're like, "Hey, come stay with us." So I was couch surfing with Mac and Rhea, and we talked about character a few minutes ago. That's the kind of character that you guys are. Just some random dude off the streets, and I'd stay with them for a week when the kids are with me. Then I'd stay in a park or my car or a church or whatever else, and to get the kids back, and I was able to stay with them again. But during that time, we came up with this book.
About 2 or 3 in the morning, I think, if I remember right.
Yep. We were pitching the idea, and of course I claim it, but it was probably yours. And now that I'm recording this, it's going to be recorded forever.
Say the truth.
The vision of the Phoenix. We come up with the Phoenix at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, Mac's a night guy. I'm a night guy. So we're coming up with this idea. And I had told him, here's what I wanted, the peer program to be. And I'd say something, he goes, yeah, I got that. And I'd ignore it. And I'd say something else, he goes, yeah, I got that too. So after about an hour, it finally sunk in that he's already got this down. So I didn't scrap, but I put on the shelf all the stuff I was thinking. And I said, let's just use what you've got. And that was the basis for our peer program.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, we were sober. We wasn't just.
That's right.
Late night drinking or anything.
I haven't drank since 2012. Part of my growth, but yeah, we were just talking synergizing. Habit 6 out of 7 habits. We were in there synergizing about these things and came up with that Phoenix idea.
The Phoenix came together, the peer program together, and the fact that people, like we talked about before, you control your thoughts. Your thoughts, there's several steps in the middle, end up being your destiny.
Yep.
And that still is the basis for pretty much everything that we do. That's pretty cool.
It was really cool. It's really cool to see what you've done with it. Like I was telling you before we started recording, I'll know when you're serious about it when you got that Phoenix tattoo on your shoulder.
Oh, you said shoulder? I thought you said
shoulder. Yeah,
I thought you said that.
That was you, Michael.
Somewhere on the backside.
Yeah. Kind of like the other shoulder. You know what I mean?
But it's so cool. I remember. I mean, the subtitle of the book we did together, encourage, engage, and empower. The Phoenix. People wonder what the superscript 3 is,
Yep.
meaning cubed, but it's those 3 E's right there.
Yeah. So we're redesigning our website. We're going through this rebranding event right now. So the next couple of weeks, what they see on our website and all of our media is going to be a little bit different. So I've had to describe to the folks who are doing this for us, like the details of the Phoenix, that there's a hidden E in each of the wings
Yep.
and in the tail. I think that came up in that late night.
Yeah, we came up with all that
coffee
right
session.
there. I mean,
Yep.
we slowed down to go fast.
Yeah.
That's
worked.
exactly, it did work. It does work. Works at professionally and personally when we'll do that.
So we use this, ours is a veteran and I said that right this time.
You did.
And first responders, but you work with like everybody when you're talking. So you're not talking just this, you're taking your concepts and principles. I say international. You went to Canada, right?
Yeah, Canada, Guatemala, and in Mexico we've been in.
See, he is international.
See, so that is outside of the States. That's it, baby. So you do this in businesses and help businesses and using the same methods, that you came across, that you developed, military and life and all of that.
Yeah, when I got into this, and for the first 4 years, I just read books. I had never invested in developing myself, but I'd start reading books, listening to audios, and after 4 years, when I decided I want to go do this permanent and make it my job, and I quit drinking in 2012. A couple months after that, I now had more time and more energy, more money,
more memory,
and so I went to a John Maxwell did an event, a day about books. He's like a leadership guru, truly world renowned,
Right.
the guy out there, and spent $5,000 going to his conference. And what I realized was most of the people around me were white collar executives. Most of them were there because their company was paying for them to be there.
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily even care.
A little vacation for them.
Yeah, for a lot of them it was like that. But I had been reading this stuff for 4 years. I didn't care. I ain't got nothing against white collar folks. We need everybody. But I'm just a blue collar guy, and that's the blue collar folks. What I learned was most often overlooked, underappreciated, definitely underdeveloped beyond what's required. Usually you're doing good to get developed officially to do the job. Most time it ain't even that's not done well. It's on the job training. Matt, go hang out with Brian. Brian will teach you how to do the job. That's usually the development you get.
That's a competency piece we were talking about this morning.
Yep. And so I realized pretty quick these principles, they're timeless. They apply everywhere, just like lean principles, leadership principles do. And so basically I took all these principles that most often taught to white collar executives, wrapped my blue collar life and blue collar stories around the same principles. And I really focus on teaching them to the blue collar industries. We do speak at white collar groups. We've spoken for universities. We spoke at Yale University. Rhea's spoken at the Capitol, and
wow,
we've spoken for the Navy, the officers, and the contractors and enlisted Air Force officers. We spoke to out in Arizona. We speak to all kind of people. But my passion is the blue collar folks, because hardly anybody does anything for those folks, especially the ones entry level. We speak to CEOs and business owners, but the reason I'm really speaking to them, I want to help them too, but I want to speak to the frontline people. I want to speak to the people that most often are just valued for their arms and their legs and their back and that kind of stuff. And I want to help them have a better life. And I want to help them become those leaders at the top who can make it to the top one day, who truly value developing the people.
So this may, we may end up cutting this piece out, but I got to ask this question. The white collar folks, now you're educating, you're training, you're empowering the blue collar folks. Doesn't that scare the stew out of the people above them?
Sometimes it does if they have a low degree of character. That's why we teach everybody. When we go somewhere, we try to get them to put everybody in the room. Everybody. Support people, leaders all the way to the top. Have an owner sitting beside a frontline worker. And I often tell people that the best companies we go in, they do put everybody in the room.
Good.
And the very best companies, the folks sitting at the front of the room
are the blue collar.
No, it's the leaders.
Really?
The CEO, the CFO, the COO, the executive vice presidents. I'm thinking of a construction company in Texas where this happened, but it happens more than just that place. But the reason I say that, there's usually three kind of leaders when we go somewhere. There's a kind that doesn't even come in the room. That's the worst. Right. It ain't about us. It's about we got to fix those people, which they don't understand. The people are exactly where they've been led to be. So it goes, if you track the root cause, you always get back to the top.
Right.
The root cause of everything wrong inside of an organization, or right, either way. So The second kind comes in the back of the room with the arms crossed and kind of watches everybody, see what they're doing. So they do come, but they come to hover over and smother and watch everybody.
Not to learn, but to see what the other people are doing.
That's right.
Gotcha.
But the best kind, which kind I just described, they come in the room, they sit down on the front row, they pull out the notebook, they take notes so everybody else can see what they're doing.
Nice.
Meaning they're participating, they're learning, they're growing, they're modeling, they're leading.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the word character, and when somebody, I don't want to go too far off of this, but like if you look even in the Bible, it talked about Jesus it didn't ask us to do anything that he didn't do. And I think that's with a lot of leadership. You should be able to get in there. You see the successful, whether it's flipping hamburgers. I mean, if your boss is willing to get back there and do that and drop the fries and all of that, then you see that he's a team player, not just somebody who's trying to boss you around to do what you're doing. And I saw in some of your notes that you said character is 90% of the situation. And what's the other 10%?
Yeah, I say 87 to 90 is of your results and influences based on your character, 10 to 13%. And that's based on research study. It ain't just what I say, but I don't even care about the research. I know.
Exactly.
I don't need
experience.
it. I've seen it. I've lived it. But the people who are worried about, are those numbers real? All you got to do to validate it, don't worry about the numbers. But throughout your career, can you validate that you've seen? Most often people are hired for what they know. They're hired for what they know, their competency, but they fired for who they are, their character.
Wow.
I mean, everybody knows that. Most people are fired for their character. Think of top pro athletes that they slip up. They got the best competency relative to their job, their sport, but their character costs them their job. And sometimes they don't ever get that job back. They make such a big mistake. But a lot of people don't realize, guys, that people, I like when I speak about this and everybody is in the room and I talk about it. Everybody knows the boss can fire the workers, right? And everybody knows that. I say, have you ever thought about workers can fire the boss? And it's kind of silence. They look into what you talking about.
How do we do that? No.
I said, it's called quit.
Pick me.
It's called quit and find a new job.
Ah.
I said, but bosses like to call it turnover so it don't make them look so bad.
Yep.
But that's what turnover is, nothing more than the boss being fired.
That's a cool way to put it.
Yeah.
I mean, it really puts the pressure back on the leadership.
Leader's always responsible. Jocko Willink, former Navy SEAL commander, he says, and I've validated it 1,000,000 times and seen it a different 1,000,000 ways, but there are no bad leaders, only bad teams. Somebody say, well, what about that team member so-and-so? Well, the leader's allowing them to be on the team. They either got to improve them or remove them. Leader is always responsible. It doesn't make any difference.
Wow.
High impact leaders is what I call them. High impact leaders look in the mirror and take responsibility. It does not matter. Whatever it is, I'm responsible. So I've got to go get in the middle of it, figure it out, improve somebody, remove somebody. When you allow toxic people to be on your team, I always tell leaders, when you allow a toxic person to be on your team, all you're doing is damaging your integrity. Everybody knows that's a toxic person. They also know who they report to.
And
they know who's allowing
keeping
it.
them there.
Yep, who either's not removing them or improving them.
Yeah.
So I think this is good to kind of lead into, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to book Mack and Rhea for your, exactly. I mean, why not? Why not? Let's share that here. So can you give us some information if somebody wanted to say, you know what, I'd like to talk to you about maybe coming to our business or our organization or something, and what's the best way to go about that?
They can. My cell phone number, the one on my hip, 334-728-4143. But they can go to bluecollarleadership.com, look at our special offer. That's really, most people take advantage of that special offer.
Bluecollarleadership.com?
Yep, in the special offer tab. And basically what we do, any company that's willing to purchase 300 books for their people, we've got lots of books. So
30.
34.
Yeah, 34 between
the two of them.
And Rhea's working on 35 now. But any company, we tell leaders, if you'll invest in your people, we'll invest in your people. What they have to do is buy a minimum of 300 books. And, if they got 30 people, they can get them a set of 10 books. But we'll pay all our expenses and come speak for up to 2 hours. That's $5,400. And we've been paid $20,000 to speak. But last time we did anything like that was 2016. It's almost like a ministry. People say this is like a ministry because they do get the value. Their money that they're spending, they get a tangible product, which is that book.
Give that website one more time for me.
bluecollarleadership.com.
So if you need to reach out to Mack and Rhea Story, have them come to your organization, that's where you go. So we're coming up on the end of our time. Do you have anything else?
Well, I can't believe how fast
I know,
time
it just flies, doesn't it?
I was fascinated at the story you guys were telling pre-show. If we could work that in, that would be really cool, because I think that kind of ties into what you're just now saying.
Well, yeah, because I think my question was originally is like, do they pay this flat fee or do they? And you said like the special offers, they buy the books, but you've had people who said we don't want the books. Is that?
Yeah, that's another thing. A lot of leaders say because I always point them in the direction of the special offer, because I know something they don't know. That's the best deal they're going to get.
Right.
Is for me to speak for free. I mean, how much better deal can you get?
That's a good deal.
But anyway, I had this guy I was telling you guys about. He's a VP of a concrete construction company, concrete pumping company up in Charlotte, North Carolina. We live here near Atlanta. He calls me up. He says, "Hey, Mac, I want you to come speak to 20 supervisors." I said, "Okay." And we talked about everything. And he says, "Now we got to get to the most important part. How much is it going to cost?" I said, "Have you been on my website and looked at our special offer?" He said, "No, I haven't." So I explained it to him. Currently, that special offer is what I mentioned a minute ago: 300 books, $5,400, which is the cost of the books, and we'll pay all of our expenses. Come speak for free up to 2 hours, anywhere in the 50 states. Doesn't matter which one it is.
Wow.
And so I told him that. He says, "That's great," but he said, "These blue collar folks, they ain't gonna read the books." He said, "I really don't want the books. What's it cost if I don't get the books?" A lot of people ask that, and I said, "Sam, let me make sure I got it right. You're in Charlotte, I'm in Atlanta. You want us to come speak for a couple hours with some 20 supervisors?" I said, $10,000.
Crickets.
Those are crickets.
And I left it silent. I did it on purpose. I still do this because I'm trying to teach a lesson at the same time and get them to think at a higher level. Finally, he says, "Mac, let me make sure I got this right. I get 300 books, $5,400. You'll come pay all your expenses, speak for up to 2 hours." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "But if I don't want the books, it's $10,000. I said, "Yes, sir." And we've actually been paid $20,000 to speak, so that's actually a good deal. That's half price. I let it sit with him a minute. Then he says, Why would I ever do that, Mac? Why would I ever pay you $10,000?
Right.
His name was Sam.
Exactly.
I said, "Sam,"
point.
I said, "Sam, I hope you wouldn't, because my mission and your mission is different. You're trying to constrain me to just touching 20 people for a couple hours. I'm trying to get you to get a bunch of books for them, and then also books for all the folks, the hundreds of people who are not working, are not going to be in that room with us. So if you're gonna reduce my vision down to just touching 20 people, then it's going to cost you a lot more, because that ain't what I want to do. But if you're willing to let me do what I want to do, which is impact a lot more people than those 20 people, then it's going to cost you a lot less, because I actually want to do that." And I said, "I'm going to give you I got a podcast, Blue Collar Leadership podcast, episode 305. I teach leaders a 30-minute lesson how to facilitate a high-impact book study, so that when we leave, if they actually want to lead, they can go lead the team through these book studies," which is really not a book study. It's workforce development or leadership development. Micro lesson. Each chapter is a micro lesson. It ain't just a book study. It ain't a cheesy thing. But managers of people don't want to do that right there. Leaders of people would do it relentlessly.
That's what I love about Mac and having him on this show. Historically, what people think about vets is the homeless guy they see on the corner, or the trouble they're having with the VA, or the suicidal issues that we're always hearing about. But Mac is the opposite. And I think Mac actually does represent a big portion of veterans that we don't get to hear about, are the ones who spent time in uniform, did their time, and are not just successful, but they're super successful and thriving in their life afterwards. Thanks for your time this morning. I'm really glad that we're able to get this time in.
Yeah, Mac, we really appreciate you being in here.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Michael. You guys are doing an awesome job with the After Action Report. Y'all got to just keep making it happen. Make it happen, or somebody else will. Might as well be you.
Well, hey, we really appreciate that. I know when he said on episode 300 something, it's like we're on number 7.
Right.
And so on your podcast, you mention our podcast, and all your podcast people will like our podcast.
What an idea.
And we'll just continue to grow.
Brian needs to come be a guest on there.
There you go. Hey, you need to do that. You should do that.
I'll have my people talk to your people.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for spending some time with us today. Wherever you are, you can reach out to us. The Eden Project. Let me start over. Eden-project.com. Eden-project.com. 678-632-5383. A Warrior Support Foundation. my co-host, Bryn Briggs, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you.
Awesome. It was a great day.
And my name is Michael Stuart. On behalf of the After Action Report and the Eden Project, have a wonderful day.